All right, boys and girls, we're here in Nashville with the high priest, the legend, the infamous Max Keiser. And since I don't have my video, we're just going to ad-lib it here, Max. How about that?
Well, G-Money, this is a great opportunity to finally have this chat because we've been aiming to get together and do this for a while. And so here we are, and I'm very happy to be speaking with you today.
Well, I can tell you it's an honor, Max. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. Pure signal out of you. And so the first question I want to ask you is, since you're an advisor to President Bukele, okay, Americans are being suffocated by taxation, by inflation. The biggest question I have for you is, will President Bukele offer political asylum for people that refuse to pay their taxes to the king in America?
I have brought this up with the president numerous times. He needs to offer political asylum to Americans, Canadians, Australians, Europeans, whoever, who are being taxed to death and their money is being inflated away to death. And it's just one of the many ideas that so far the president has rejected from me. To give you an idea of some of the ideas that President Bukele has rejected that I've made, for example, the national anthem of El Salvador is too long. I said he should cut it in half. It's 4 minutes, and most national anthems are 2 minutes. Okay, when we go to a sporting event, they play the Salvadoran national anthem. It's like, oh, I'm going to take a nap because this thing's going to go on and on and on and on. I also said that they should get rid of seed oils and fry pupusas only in, olive oil or other non-seed oils, coconut oil, nothing. But the seed oils are the death. They're terrible. Get rid of. So far, no action on that either. So giving political asylum is a great idea. G-Money, but will he take action? I can't say when.
Okay, we love it. Well, we love that because it's at least moving the Overton window towards freedom, towards sovereignty, because Bitcoin is an unconfiscatable, untaxable asset. And at the end of the day, this fight is not just about inflation, but it's about the corruptness of our institutions and the taxes we use to actually fund this corruption. Part of that corruption is we're now funding the next pandemic, Max. Secretary Yellen has just announced $667 billion to fund pandemic research, right? When does it end? We're sending our bombs over to Israel to bomb children. We're sending our money to corrupt pedophiles. And when are Americans going to stand up and say, enough is enough?
G-Money, you bring up a very basic and important point in that fiat money and paper money breeds malinvestment, and the incentives are all wrong, and it crowds out good investments. And you go from a democratic institution to a technocracy where it's ruled by the worst qualified, the worst people. And as you described, that group of people, these are really the slime balls of society. They end up in power because they get their arms around the money printer and they crowd out decency and fidelity to God and good old-fashioned hard work and profit maximalization, let's call it, right? So Bitcoin, as it eats the fiat money world, 20, 30 years ago, there was a saying that that software is eating the world, right? Computers are eating the world. And every business now is basically a software business, It's all about yield management. Airlines, it's a software business. They have a great app, and it's all about the app. And the planes are really not the business that they're in. And the promo miles and the air miles. Air miles are a currency, and it's a huge profit center for airlines. So it's not about the actual hardware so much. It's really a software company. And the last holdout from the Industrial Revolution that hasn't been completely transformed by software was money itself. So Bitcoin transforms money and turns it into software, and it does so in a brilliant way, and it does so in a way where all other forms of money, whether it's fiat money and even gold, are being demonetized against Bitcoin. So you're transitioning from an asset that's 1.3 trillion to 200 trillion or 300 trillion, and it's essentially it's absorbing all of that that monetary energy is being transferred to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is, as you point out, finite, unconfiscatable, uncensorable, untaxable, right? So it has all these attributes, which then change the incentive models, and it changes it allows for a meritocracy to exist instead of a kakistocracy, and that breeds a better incentives all around. It brings back more of the morals and ethics as those concepts are understood in the classic sense.
Yep.
So that's the promise of Bitcoin, beyond just the attributes of being great technology. There's a societal benefit, a philosophical benefit. And so it's a long way to say, yes, I agree with you.
Gotcha. You see here, Max says you don't have to pay your... No, I'm kidding. Okay, couple more questions because I know we're short on time.
Well,
You're a
it should
busy
be
guy.
voluntary.
Should be voluntary, exactly. Taxes should be voluntary.
I'm happy to, or, being a member, we're seeing this in El Salvador. El Salvador not only is decentralizing the central banking system by adopting Bitcoin and getting rid of the IMF, but the President Bukele is also really decentralizing the state. The nation state is also being disintermediated by Bitcoin. So
literally, humanity is going from proof of stake to proof of work, even the institutions, right?
Right. I mean, so I always say this: money existed before the state. Bitcoin separates money from state. Bitcoin kills the state.
Love it.
Right?
I love it.
Those are the three things, right? That's
okay. So now that Trump is on board, he's getting a massive following, right? He's on board with Bitcoin.
He's getting there.
My thesis has been he's always been a Bitcoiner. I'll share with you some point. But, if Trump doesn't win the election, okay, which there's a good chance he doesn't win because we're voting in a proof of stake system.
Right.
Okay.
And you can print votes.
And you can print votes out of thin air, Max.
Ballots. Deliver truckloads of ballots.
Exactly. And so if Trump doesn't win, I mean, legitimately, right, because they're going to encode more logic into the proof of stake system to override the true votes. What are people going to do, Max? What are people going to do? And this is where I kind of want to, I'm leading into a question about software. I'm leading into a question about Jason Lowry. Now, I know there's been a little bit of back and forth between you and Lowry. I know. But, and I know your original thesis about hash power, hash war, he's built upon that and provided a main thesis for that. We like to troll you a little bit and say, well, he wrote a huge paper on it. And so if Trump doesn't win, where do we go? Do we go digital 1776 to where people say we're not going to pay our taxes, we're not going to comply with you? What happens at that point if Trump doesn't win?
Yeah. So the game theoretical answer, is like game theory rules, right? Game theory always triumphs in the end. And Ayn Rand, who's John Galt, Mises, Austrian economy. Think about it. Let me say this. Austrian economics up before Bitcoin was a theory.
Right.
And as Hayek said in a famous video from the 80s, we'll never know actually if Austrian economists work because the government will never have our own money unless there was some sly workaround. You've seen the video, as many of your audience has. Well, Bitcoin is that sly workaround. So now we have truly private money in an Austrian economics way. So unlike other periods of history, we have a citizenry that can walk naked through an airport with all of their assets and go anywhere in the world, right? So the Ayn Rand idea, we walk. So there's either A, we fight, or B, we walk, right? Those are the two choices, fundamental choices. I think that for me, I've already made my choice. I already walked. I'm in El Salvador. I still have a presence in the United States. I still am a taxpayer in the United States, but I am ready for this moment when I'm simply no longer seen.
Well, I mean, you're right on, right? Because Bitcoin is access to digital sovereignty in cyberspace that is protected by a wall of energy, right?
Correct.
And so we like to call it digital 1776.
Okay.
Because if we truly have power back to the people, and we're sovereign citizens that are protected by a wall of energy, you have to convince me why I should voluntarily give you my Satoshis, right? Like it's
Exactly.
a voluntary,
Yeah, exactly.
and so we
That's
really
why
have the
I say
power.
Bitcoin demonetizes violence,
100%.
right? And it monetizes peace.
100%.
Because the model of me just, $5 wrench attack and stealing your shit, right, doesn't work if it's behind this wall of encryption.
Did Alex Jones really lose all that Bitcoin? Is he really that dumb?
Yeah, because the Bitcoin was under $5, and I thought, you know what, I want to spread the word of Bitcoin. I'll give you 10,000 Bitcoin, and you give it to your audience, right? But he wouldn't take it. He was just like, no, it's a CIA op, a psyops, and all this shit. And I'm like, no, man. Try and trust me on this. You're making a mistake. Okay, you're going to regret this.
Oh, man. Alex
And,
really messed up on that one.
Yeah.
Now, we're in this beautiful art gallery of Pepes and tokens on layer 2, counterparty.
Yeah.
There's even a Max Keiser Pepe, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
And,
It's been around for a while. I think it's traded at a premium.
with the corruption in Wall Street and the SEC and the dark pools trading
Let's move
money.
over here because we have some traffic.
With the dark pools and the SEC, and Wall Street, you've been part of Wall Street, right?
Yeah,
you know how it works.
Yeah.
90% of the trades are in dark pools.
Sure.
75% of their revenue by Patrick Byrne came out that it was used from basically lending equities back and forth. They don't actually have a business; they just lend it back and forth.
That's right.
And with the DTCC having legal ownership of all of our equities, how do we bust out of that system? Because we can't just fix the currency; we have to fix the capital markets. Do you have an opinion on layer 2 counterparty versus ordinals versus inscriptions? I don't like ordinals and inscriptions, but I think layer 2 counterparty is a legitimate system based on Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, but it's backed by Bitcoin.
Right.
And you can, as collateral, and that's the base money for the economy, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. I mean, let the market decide.
Yeah.
Let
the market decide, yeah.
Yeah. These other products that are coming along, the market will either reject it or accept it. It doesn't change or hurt Bitcoin in any way, aside from the fact that a lot of the positioning for a lot of these products has been that it's somehow better than Bitcoin, which I think is a disservice for everybody involved, because everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. I mean, look at the NFT market. I haven't checked recently, but it's pretty well dead. I mean,
the Max Keiser Pepe is still doing pretty well, though, I think.
Well, I'm a special case because of course, I am Max Keiser. So, my Pepe will be killed last. I'll be dead last, you see. But I'll still go to zero. I'll tell you something else, G-Money. A lot of, this question comes up, and I thought it was an answer that I thought was very poetic, if I say so myself. This kid asked me, am I too late to buy Bitcoin? And of course, people always have that idea, like, oh, you bought it at $1, fuck you. It's at 65,000 or whatever. But here's the fact: why you should buy Bitcoin right now and continue to buy Bitcoin every day. Because the future that's coming, thanks to Bitcoin, is so great. But guess what? Guess who's not going to be here to enjoy it? Me. I'll be gone. But I won't be able to live in the future that Bitcoin's creating. I'm still stuck. We're still stuck in a legacy system.
Still stuck in clown world.
Right? Until there's a big major move. And whenever that comes, it'll come. It'll probably won't really be flourishing for a while, and therefore I'm going to miss it.
Well, your legacy is going to be an amazing legacy. We're all here for a certain purpose. Your purpose has been an amazing one. It's been an honor to follow you and just see your growth and see what's happened since you've started.
I just channel Satoshi. He speaks through me. I'm the Pope. I'm the Bishop.
You are 100%. You are 100%.
In dreams, like I had a dream the other night. Satoshi came to me and said, Max, why do you keep saying this shit about me? No, I'm sorry.
Okay. One last question here. I'm going to talk about QAnon. Have you heard of QAnon? Have you heard of the Q?
I have heard of it. I know it's one of many
conspiracies.
Just refresh my memory.
So my theory on it, to some degree, is that
which one is this again?
QAnon is the random person on 4chan that was posting stuff about Donald Trump, about pedophiles, about Epstein Island, about a secret cabal that runs the entire world and the banking system. Okay, and so
there's a random person who posted all that.
We still don't know. It's still anonymous, just like Satoshi.
And so, but that's truthful.
It's
just
truthful.
A QAnon. So what was that? Is that handle on 4chan or something?
Yeah. It was an anonymous poster. We think it's probably the NSA, since SHA-256 came from the NSA, the highest level of Department of Energy,
So it's like a
Q-level
WikiLeaks
clearance, kind of.
guy
Exactly.
Released a lot of shit,
Yes.
which in a sense seemed pretty legitimate.
Pretty legitimate. They started posting in 2017, and then they stopped posting in 2022 or whatever. But there's a lot of information that's been posted that talks about the secret cabal running the banks, running the institutions.
Okay.
And so my theory is that like QAnon basically is Satoshi in some aspect because they're anonymous and they broke up the monopoly of power from the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Because the mainstream media has control over 90% of all the media, how do you decentralize that to citizen journalists now that we have Elon on board with Twitter and now he owns it, he's a little bit more freedom-wise. And so any thoughts on maybe this plan of Satoshi Q being like a military JFK white hat operation to actually help us save humanity? Any thoughts on that thesis? There's a lot packed in there.
What? Wait, just so I'm clear, the thesis is what? If you can distill it down, because I don't want to make just a statement.
Correct.
I want to know, what is the thesis?
Basically, a good group of guys in the military, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe people that we don't know about, a faction, helped create Bitcoin as a tool for humanity to save itself from destroying the entire world.
In the military.
Could be the military, it could be, but it has to be somewhat in.
Well, okay, so there's two questions there. One is the legitimacy of the QAnon output.
Yep.
And the other question is, how does it relate to Bitcoin and Bitcoin's origin? Right? So Bitcoin's origin to me is always about the 20 years that occurred before 2009. So you had 20 years of the cypherpunks who, and money on the internet was always a challenge. I know because in the 90s I have a patent on a virtual currency, and so I'm very familiar with the whole effort to try to create digital currency and virtual currencies. And so the double spend problem, as it's described, was solved with the white paper, and it was released in 2009. It does in fact solve that problem, and it has been picked up as money. Nobody had to treat it as money,
right?
But they did, and because that's what money is anything people say it is. That's what money is,
right?
And it's not government fiat that creates money. It's society that creates money. That's why I say money existed before the state. We've always had money and a need for money. So, I'm of the school that really the primary author of Bitcoin is really Al Finney.
Okay.
That's my
interesting.
belief.
Okay.
That's my thoughts about it.
Okay.
And I think that it comes out of the cypherpunk movement, who were driven by that problem with the double spend, and that's for the lulz drove them, like any open source project, and the geek and the community and the hacker community, and it overlaps the gamblers and the pornographers and the outcasts.
Right.
Bitcoin is born on the fringe of society.
We're misfits.
By misfits, right? Who are like, really dissent. That's where all innovation, meaningful innovation comes from. And, Project 1776, right? I mean, the founders of the United States are all, heretics, in their way. So that's my origin thoughts about Bitcoin. Now, as far as QAnon and the various things that you're talking about there, I mean, all of those things are every day we get more and more deeper into this cabal of power hungry globalists, as Alex Jones likes to call them, who are, to put it into a broader perspective, again, like my view of things is that if you look at this really in a 1,000-year cycle, there 500 years ago or so, you had feudalism was the dominant political organizing principle in the West. Then you had the plague. In 14 somethings came along and wiped out half the population. And suddenly you had a dynamic shift change where the owners of property needed people to tend that property, and then the Lord Serf model gave way to having to pay for this assistance. So you had the beginning and end of the merchant class, the middle class.
Right.
And they have been expanding for hundreds of years, and in a lot of ways during the period of the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the workers overthrew the feudal class entirely.
Yep.
And we had, in the case of the United States, government buying for the people. The families and the control of the feudal lords, the kings, the monarchs, and you still see it like, I make a lot of fun of the UK all the time because, it's still fucking, they got a king there, and it's like, it's actually not, it's a fucking goddamn monarchy going on.
Right.
And the aristocracy, and they hold a lot more power than people are really willing. I mean, it's a centralized authority model. So this group of people, whether you call it Davos, or you call it the globalists, or you call it the World Economic Forum, they're holdovers from the pre-plague middle-aged years of monarchy and feudalism. And their goal is to bring back feudalism. They want to own 99.99% of all the wealth and all the assets, and they want the other billions of people to be living as peasants. They want to bring back the peasant class, to reverse the damage of having that happened hundreds of years ago. So, and to do that, they are resorting to means of extreme depravity and guerrilla warfare, psychological warfare, psyops, all these things. Like they're really the technocrats who have access to so much of our daily life in terms of communications and media and advertising. They've co-opted it all to bring back a global peasant class, what I call the casino gulag, where you have, and I think it's really happening now because you're making gambling legal. It's really becoming more and more, every territory is legalizing gambling to the extent where people are clicking on fruit machines online for enough money for a ham sandwich.
Exactly.
And that's their life, right? It's the casino gulag. You're not in necessarily a prison per se, but you have no money, you have no property, you have no gas, you can't go anywhere, you have no car, right?
Literally depressed. Literally depression.
You're in a feudalism, and you're not picking cotton or toiling in the mud. I mean, you're clicking on ads, right? I mean, that's how I see things in a broader perspective. I like to kind of take a broad perspective on things because I think change happens slowly, and then the cracks, you get that quantum change. But people tend to think like what happened last year is going to have an impact on what's happening this year. But I like to think what's happened in the last 100 years, 200 years, find those trends that are then on the precipice of a quantum leap of change or shift, because everything in nature is
swinging back.
Quantum leap. You don't find gradient change is not as common as quantum change, right? Ice is water with a 1 degree change. It's steam with a 1 degree change. Right? It doesn't gradually become ice. It's just it's a phase shift. Electrons jump orbits in quantum state.
Well, I think we're seeing that crack in the matrix right now.
Yeah.
I think you have been the tip of the spear at this revolution of making that crack, and it's truly an honor to serve on the digital battlefield with you. And we're gonna fucking win, baby. Are we gonna win or what?
Well, like the signers of the Declaration of Independence, they were all hunted down and murdered. So, but we'll die standing up and not on our knees.
Exactly. Absolutely, brother. You're a legend.
That's a hell of a name.